Hello, so this is going to be the first video trying to step through doing the pinch project in Ceramics 1. So this is made when we're doing virtual learning. If you're at home, you have a bag of clay. If we're in the studio, you will be doing, I'll just be giving you the clay. You won't have to try to size it up. So for the whole bag right here, we're going to just kind of eye it up and just take 1/3 of the clay. So I'll just kind of make some sketch lines on here, thinking, well, okay, what's 1/3? What's 1/3? It's about this much. You'll have to find a knife. It doesn't have to be sharp. This is a clay knife. It's called a fettling knife. It's not sharp. No ceramic knife should be sharp to where you'd cut yourself. Okay? It's not extremely blunt, but you wouldn't want to be able to cut yourself with it. I'll take this knife. You could take a wire. We have wire tools we use in the studio. And cut 1/3 of it off. I'm going to wrap up the rest of the clay. Make sure I twist it real well. You do not want air to get at this. Put the twist tie back on it. Tuck it around. Set it down on top of the twist tie. And save the rest of this clay for future work. All right, put this down here. So then what we have to do when we start ceramics is we have to practice wedging. So I just cut this in half. And if I'm giving you clay, if we're in the studio, I'm going to give you probably 2 of these and maybe probably a little bit more. We use a little bit more when we're in the studio. So what you do is wedging is something like, for instance, because you're not going to get perfect clay like this all the time. Let's say, for instance, you get clay and there's just all these little bunches, and if you start making projects with them, what's going to happen is they're not going to be actually mixed together. When it dries or when it's fired, there might be air bubbles in here, or it might just fall and crack apart at the places the clay's not mixed up really well. This is brand new clay. It's straight from the factory or the processing at Georgie's where I buy it. So if you see, these just mix up extremely well. No air bubbles, just no divisions in between the clay. So even though it is, we want to practice doing this. So you have your clay like this, and what you want to do is you have a board. It doesn't have to be a canvas board. We like to use these in the classroom so that the clay doesn't stick to them. But you can use any type of surface like this table here or any kind of hardwood that you might have at home. You just want to make sure you're not spraying it if you're pressing it into a surface where it could stick, because that'll cause it to stick a lot more. So what I do is I have to stand up. I get above the clay and I take the heels of my hands here and here, and I try to put the weight into the clay like this, and then lean over and put my shoulders above it. So I'm just using the weight of my body. Now you don't have to be really strong or weigh a lot for this. I've seen tiny little old people do this when they have their form down. It's very possible. It might take some practice. Some people do have to practice this a bit, and well, actually everybody does when you first start off. Just go ahead and just keep rolling that clay. You push, roll it over, push, push, push. As you see, it starts to come this way, so you want to then put it up on end where it's going up like this. Push down. And you continue to do this until you really can tell that there's no clear divisions in the clay, and it's mixing up really well. If you find little pieces coming off, just go ahead and get those back in here, like tiny little divots or whatever. Mostly just to keep it neat. And in the end, you know, you can go a little quicker. But you want to keep rotating it when you push it down, and it starts to go linear like this. When it starts to go linear like this, put it up on the end and go that way. Put it on end, go that way. Heels of the hand, just lean over. Alright. So practice that for a while. Make sure it's mixed up real well. Afterwards, pick up the clay, get it in your hands with your heel still, you want to hit the clay. You can punch it if you want. But what we're going to try to do, slap it, whatever way works best for you. Squeeze it. At the beginning of the project, we want to get a long tower type of form right here. We don't want it to be too skinny. We don't want to have a lot of extra pieces coming out. So it's about like this. About like that. Alright. Grab this wheel here so I can spin this around for you. Now, if you find that the bottom is thicker than the top, go ahead and flip it upside down, and now this will be the bottom. Because part of the project is you're going to try to fight gravity. Is that this piece throughout the project is going to try to sag on you. Alright? Gravity is going to work against you. So, a lot what you're demonstrating in this work is that you know how to deal with that and work against it. So, first of all, this is the pinch project. Big things you're not supposed to do in this project. You're not supposed to remove clay and reattach it anywhere. You're also not allowed to just remove it altogether. You have to work with all of this clay. You can't take any away. If you want to make clay go from one spot to another, you have to just move it like this. Drag it across the surface. Okay? You can't remove it and reattach it. So, the pinch is all about blowing the form out. Is getting this so it's all of a sudden like flowy, it's organic, and it's getting thinner. You want it to then have more movement and it's coming out away from the central form. So, since it's pinch, what we're going to do is just go in, start at the top, pinch. It's like a little grip right in here. Make sure this is not too thin. Right here, we can pull out a little piece. Try to pull it out away from the rest of the project, like that. Now stop. You don't have to move that anywhere else. Come to another area. Now I'm going to go maybe over to here. Pull that out. Got a little thin right here. I want to make sure nothing becomes too thin, so I pull a little clay into that. I don't want this project ever to be straight up and down on any angle, so that's why I want to try to pull it out. So don't work anywhere for very long, just for a couple seconds. So I did this real quick. But look at this. It's just on this side right here. If I show you this angle, it's flat like on these sides. That's part of the grading too, is you have no sides that you can just like scoot this up against the wall and it's flat. So I am not going to put any more attention here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some clay. I'm going to find some other thick areas like right here. And so these are my flat areas, right? So I'm going to grab this thick area here and I'm going to pull that this direction. Now this is still flat over here, so let me go grab this, pull it out this direction. It's starting to look like this. As you can see already, as soon as you start pulling this clay out, it wants to start collapsing on you. Alright? You continue to try to pull it up when you work. Now, right in here, it's going to get risky, because once I start moving my work down, it's going to want to collapse even more, because all this clay is holding up this clay. But you want to see what you can get away with. I'll start opening up a smaller hole here. Push this clay up into this tube over here. Alright. Now, if I do much more than this, if I break out many more of these forms right now, like these tubes forms, it'll collapse on me. So, what I want to do at this point is just start smoothing and reinforcing, okay? I want to think about how this form right here, maybe this is coming up and moving into this one. So I could also just start designing. I did the rough cut. I pulled out these main forms. So now I'm going to start thinking about where this clay moves to. Maybe this clay moves over here. How about this tube right here? well, they move around and connect in with each other. I can move. You see how I'm just dragging this clay? I'm not removing it and reattaching it anymore. This one comes down, flows into this one. Maybe this comes down, flows into this. Okay. It's quite a thick bit of thick clay here. I could probably, at the very top you don't have to worry about too much when you open it up because there's no weight on top of it. So I can make another small little tunnel here on top, and that's going to be fine. There's no weight on it. As you see, this whole thing, check it out, very wet. It wants to fall in on itself. That's why you don't want to pull out anything too thick. And one really good trick that I'm going to be asking people to do all the time, beyond just doing this, get in here and just keep pulling it up. Keep pulling it up. Just do this. If it's stuck to anything you're working on, slide it, but hold it upside down. Once you're holding it upside down, the gravity's working for you. You can even work on it like this. Put your elbow down to support. You could, it's not good for the camera angle, but you could put both elbows down. Hold it and just let it stretch this way while you go in here and smooth out certain areas. If you pulled out any of this clay that's too thin, it's going to rip on you right here. So that's why you want to start off with really thick forms. And also the second part of this project is carving. So you're going to want to leave that thickness for you to be able to carve. Alright? So I'll just smooth that out. Let's go ahead and put this back down and observe how much taller this piece is right now, because I just did that. You want your work to be able to be reaching and extending towards the ceiling. If your piece is not extending towards the ceiling, that's something you've got to try to correct. It shouldn't look at all like it's just sagging downwards, alright? That's a huge part of what I want you to demonstrate. So, you might have to let it dry somewhat at this stage, but it doesn't mean you're not working on it. Continue to smooth and just do some connecting of these forms into each other. Like I can bring this into that. Coming in here. It's quite a lot of bumps. Maybe I'll just bring this. Some thick clay here, of course, as I was mentioning. Any thick clay at the top, you can really actually do a little bit more detail work with, because there's no weight on top of it. Alright. But craftsmanship is huge, and there's a lot of learning to do in ceramics. One of the craftsmanship is where pretty much everybody loses points when they first start off with ceramics, is trying to keep things clean looking. Okay. Just pull it out like so. And if you need to, grab a couple things here. Hold 1 second. If you need to, if it starts to like fall in on you when you're storing it, get some newspapers, printer paper, whatever kind of paper you want. But if it's like falling in on one of your lower holes down here, stuff it with newspaper before you store it, and let it hold your piece up. Okay, stuff it with newspapers. The newspapers will keep it from collapsing in on itself, and also it'll help it dry a tiny bit, so it'll be able to have more strength. Okay, I'm going to take these back out right now, but I just wanted to demonstrate that. And then when you do wrap it up, your piece, you want to put this down and make sure it's tight. You don't want it to dry too much. If you let your clay dry too much, you're in huge trouble. Okay? But when you first start off with new clay like this, it's super wet. As you see, this piece is already starting to droop, and we just want to make sure you keep this bottom smaller than the rest. Pick it up again. You're like a structural engineer in this project, so you go ahead, squeeze the bottom, squeeze it. You need to, you'd go like this and hit the bottom if you have it really thick. Turn it, hit it up, turn it, hit it up, turn it, hit it up, turn it, hit it, to get this slender, and it'll extend it up. As you see, this piece extends up a lot right now. And then you just keep smoothing, letting it dry a tiny bit, and make sure you have no sides that are flat. Okay. And once I let it dry a tiny bit, I'll be able to do a little bit more with it. Alright, I'll stop this right now. Well, actually, before I stop this video, let me go back to, if we need to let it dry and we want to make sure it doesn't sag, go ahead and put some newspapers in it. And if I'm going to be around, if I can check on it, I can just leave this out a little bit if I need this to dry some more, so it's no longer sagging. I can leave it out, but you don't want to let it dry too much. Okay, so if I know that I might not check on it very soon, you will go ahead, grab a bag, put it down over the top of it. Light shopping bags work really well when the plastic's light. You just want to make sure that it has no holes in it. To do that, you could even double bag it, triple bag it. There's a piece in the background over here. You can't see it right now on the camera, but that piece has like 3 bags on it. Get the air out if you can. If it starts to like come out like this, you know, put some tools or whatever you have around it to hold it down. But this is how you would store it if you know you're not going to be checking on it any time in the near future. Okay? Alright, try that out.